Dan with the Veterans for Peace, Chapter 72. Been hosting this program for nearly 8 years now. And we like to bring on veterans and people in the medical field that are working with veterans who may be dealing with post-traumatic stress, lost somebody in a family, veterans who tell about their own experiences. This is a place where we try to talk about it from various different ways and perspectives. And for me, many of you know that I'm also an artist, painter, printmaker, and also poet, which I like to use my art as a way of expressing things. And recently I've been running across a number of Iraq and Afghan veterans who have been doing artwork that is just absolutely amazing work. And there was a show here recently. It was called the LH Project, Art Out of War. Art Out of War. This is the catalog from that. And I've asked Thomas Orr to come here, but he's been a teacher. He was one of the exhibitors in the show. He has been somebody who I thought had brought together a number of veterans on a number of projects and has some great ideas. You're also, Tom, you're a veteran, and could you tell us a little bit? You went to Vietnam in what year?
1968.
1968?
Yes.
How did you end up in the military?
How did I end up in the military? I was a jock in school. I was playing football, running track. Mm-hmm. In 63, 4, 5. The draft was up. A friend and I both wanted to go to Vietnam. Mm-hmm. And those decisions weren't about patriotism. It was about that young man that wants to find out what it's about, that dance, war, that test. My friend and I both went to Mexico. We took a house trailer, moved to Mexico for 6 months, surfed, had a great time, came back, and he joined. I was drafted, and I got to Vietnam that way.
Were you in college at the time?
I was in college, spent 2 years in college, and then we just decided it was time for us to do this, and we both. It was a conscious decision that we did. Yes, yes, and so. I was drafted. My eyes aren't fit for combat, so I went through, after basic training, I went to fixed wing crew chief school. And then my whole platoon was being shipped to Germany for probably 2 years, the remainder of my time in the Army. And that would have kept me from figuring out what I thought I wanted to figure out. So I volunteered for infantry officer candidate school. The physical test, I was fine. The eye test, I flunked. I went back 2 days later and took it again and flunked it again. And I went back a third time and I'd memorized the eye chart. And so I was, or else they said, look at this dumb kid, let him go. So I went to officer candidate school at Fort Benning in, I think, January, February of '67. After graduating, I spent a year at Fort Lewis as a training officer in a basic training company. Then I was off to Vietnam. And in Vietnam, I joined the 23rd Infantry. When I got my orders, it said 23rd Infantry. Who's that?
Yeah, right.
The 1st, the 101st, the 4th, 25th. I knew those. Yeah. And so it was the AmeriCal. And I joined the 11th Light Infantry Brigade, which is part of the AmeriCal.
Okay. Which means?
Excuse me?
And which means?
Which means the biggest division in Vietnam.
Okay, so that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I came in June, July, I went in country.
You said July, I think?
July to October.
October 2nd.
And so I came in country.
1968. Yeah.
And my sister company, Charlie Company of Bravo, of 1st to the 20th, was Bill Cowley's company. So My Lai happened in March. I joined the battalion in July. There was talk of that, but not much. Things, you know, wasn't talked about a lot. I met Callie a couple times when we were on a stand down or something. But what happened because of that is all of our records, all of our after action reports were burnt by Battalion S4,
Is that right?
S2, S4, because they knew there was going to be court cases coming up, so they destroyed all the records. So now there's no, I can't go back and find out
things,
who was in the platoon, where we, you know, all those things.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because, I mean, I got there in August of '68, and I was up by Quang Tri, Phu Bai Way area, and I remember, you know, this. I tell people about this operation we went on, and I mean, I kind of, there's parts of my memory that are lost, you know, because people were getting killed on booby traps, and mainly booby traps, one sniper fire. But it seemed like when we got back from that, nobody talked about who had died. We didn't know their names. I didn't know, you know. It's like they just vanished, and I don't know. I don't remember anybody's names. I wasn't there long enough. You know, I got shipped out quite early because my brother came over the same company and platoon, and then he was one of 11 people left alive after operation in Mead River. That happened in I think it was October, somewhere around there, October, November, and they brought him home in a straitjacket. So I mean, almost all those guys were killed except for a few that survived, that I was even with, you know. And like you say, you're wondering where those records are, and you know, very strange.
Well, a very interesting thing has happened in the last 2 years, and it's because of Facebook, I guess. That I got a phone call one day, and it was from Joaquin Perez, and he said, "Hey, Lieutenant Orr, we talked and talked. He's, yeah, I threw you on the chopper. I was wounded twice," and we talked about the first time, we talked about the second time, and he was there, threw me on the chopper, helped throw me on the chopper the second time, and he has kept in touch with me. He's gotten other people to get in touch with me, and so I recently received this page of names and addresses of people that were there at that time. They weren't all in my platoon, but they were there at that time. So some of the names, I don't remember a lot of the names, but some of them I know. Yeah,
there's some. It was strange too for me is I didn't know at the time post-traumatic stress hit me, but when I was stationed in the Philippines, a friend of mine, his name was Frank Garcia to me, you know, and we were great friends. I mean, he was just an incredible guy. I mean, he was a sergeant, and we palled around quite a bit, but. And there was a group of us, there were about 5 or 6 of us that were all friends and go out drinking together and stuff, you know, and screwing up together. But he had been fighting to go back to Vietnam, and he got orders to go back. And that's just when he was not wanting to go back, and he was going to be marrying a Filipino girl, and he got separated, and he went back. And then about a month later or so, I was told that he was killed, you know, in Vietnam. And I started acting up. I mean, I just couldn't deal with it. I just refused to serve anymore. I didn't know what was going on. But I just recently, you know, I've been trying to find his name. If he got killed in Vietnam, he should be on the wall, right? So I went to the wall, and I can't find his name. So I'm going, either, you know, people use different names when they're in the service. Whether the real name is, who knows, you know. But I couldn't connect. I could connect the time period with a couple of Latino guys, you know, but I couldn't connect it to the Philippines at the time we were together. And that's the only thing that's really bugging me. So it's between a few people, or he survived and they were wrong, you know, which kind of pisses me off. Which could very easily be true. Yeah. Because names get out there. Right. People thought that I was killed. Someone later said, "Oh, I thought you died." Right. No,
You know, so he could still be around.
He could still be alive, and if he was, I mean, I really want to connect with him. You know, as somebody. And
maybe he's listening.
Well, hopefully, you know, I put it out on Facebook. There's also these things to look up people on. I've tried that, and it hasn't happened. But the computer system is, like you said, getting better and better and better. Yeah. And I think people that I saw going on some of these websites, they were just arduous websites to try and find somebody. But now it's getting a lot quicker, a lot easier. So hopefully I might be able to find him and some of the other friends that I served with in the Philippines.
There's unit pages also that come up that you can delve into and mine.
I'm trying to do that now, and so that's something I'm looking at. Well, for me, you know, I mean, one of the things that, like I said, art has been an expression for me. So when I'm doing, you know, people will say, Dan, you know, there's a lot of death in your work. You know, there's a lot of images of war or social commentary. I have, you know, but it's directed at war mainly, and it's sort of an exorcism for me. But it's also this real aesthetic that I have that I like about art. One of the artists in this program, which was kind of curious, is Aaron Toole. And these cups here, Aaron made for me. A friend of mine who is American Vietnamese, who's an artist, filmmaker, and teacher, poet, writer. I met her when she was like 18 or 19, and she's now teaching at Berkeley Asian American Studies. And she had met Aaron, and she told me about Aaron. She said, Dan, you've got to meet Aaron, you know. So she connected us by the internet, and I contacted Aaron, and he said, well, Dan, you're a veteran. He says, send me some pictures of images of you, and I'll make you some cups. So this here is a cup, actually, that has me and my brother when we were little kids. This is my brother who's in ITR training, Michael, who died a few years back here. This is me. This is after Vietnam. I was in the Philippines. And this, of course, the Marine Corps symbol here, so you put that there. He also made me a little shot glass so that I can always tip a glass to artists everywhere. And, but I mean, these he gave to me, you know, I mean, just out of his heart, his caring about veterans and the amazing projects that he does. But Aaron was in this show that you guys had, and can you talk about the LH Art Out of War project?
Art Out of War was an idea that came out of the board of the LH project. And there's several of us on the board that are artists. And one of the fellows his name is Dean Adams. And he came up with this idea of let's get a bunch of veterans to come to LH for a month every summer and have them work and see what happens. And so they did the first one in what was 2013 in June. And Aaron was invited to that along with Daniel Donovan, who was an Iraqi vet, Jesse Albrecht, an Iraqi vet, Al Tennant, another Vietnam vet, myself, and there was one other person I don't remember. They didn't show up. And we all, except for Al, who couldn't make it, we all came together for a month. Actually, let me step back. Jesse and Daniel came together for a month. Aaron and I showed up for 2 weeks. We have kids. We have different time commitments. Right. And so Jesse and Daniel started in June. Aaron and I came mid-June, and we all worked together. And I went, interestingly enough, thinking I would keep my studio practice like I envision it now, is starting early in the morning and being done by 10 o'clock. And then going back, relaxing, and getting up and starting again. Well, we started to talk, and it was really interesting because we would just sit together and talk about our experiences, because there were 3 different wars there. The war I attended was very different than the war they attended.
Right.
And it amazes me. This came out recently. I went to a talk by Sebastian Junger.
Oh, yeah.
He was in town at the Art Museum and did a talk about his documentary, not Restrepo, but the next one.
Yeah.
And he was in this talk. He's talking about ambushes and firefights.
He's pissed me off sometimes. Did he piss you off? I hope so.
Well, and he was talking about all these things taking place in combat and all. And then he's saying that an ambush was at 600 meters. I say, what? Try 20 meters, 30 meters. What do you mean 600 meters?
Yeah.
That was 600 meters was the old guy that was on the other side of that little valley taking a pop shot at us. And you laughed at him.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was different. And I enjoyed his The Perfect Storm.
Yeah.
And I read War.
Yeah.
And it was okay. But then I heard him on Portland Public Radio, and he was talking about the excitement of combat and
that's the thing.
And the life and what it does, the adrenaline and all. And I said, I have to watch out, because when I think about the Army and I think about Vietnam, my language starts to go back to that time.
Yeah.
But he could have gotten on a chopper and left at any time.
Right.
Those other guys had to stay there.
That's right.
And the other thing that, they would go back. They would they were a place they could take a shower. They had food. I mean, they weren't sleeping in water. They weren't out.
Well, he says he did in Afghanistan. He said he was with them in, what is that, Repo or whatever it's called?
Restrepo? Maybe.
Yeah, but because he talked about, I seen him in an interview where he talked about the camaraderie with these guys and how they would fight with each other and beat each other up, and that became like some sort of macho thing that they stuck together. We were going to die together, or we didn't leave. And I thought, that sounded like excuse me, I got to watch my language. It sounded like gang mentality to me, and it's an initiation crap that they tried doing in boot camp sometimes. And I said, nah, there's nothing heroic about that. I'm sorry.
No.
And he's trying to make something out of that. I think it's just crap.
Yeah.
And so I had a real hard time with him. I just wouldn't listen to him. I think I critiqued him a couple of times on Facebook, but. I see him being brought out as the person to talk to about that. But I've never seen them bring out somebody who went to war, came back, and I mean they understand that when you were in a battle, you fought because you're trying to save your life, and you fought because you're trying to save the lives of the people beside you. And you got that message. I got that message when I first came to Vietnam. Guys told me that. It
didn't take me very long to realize that my job in Vietnam as an infantry lieutenant, as a platoon leader, was to keep these guys alive.
That's right. Right.
That was the first thing.
Yeah. What's the other guy's name that somebody who I liked reading too was he wrote The Matterhorn. You remember that one?
I do. I hated that book.
Yeah. There was parts of that where he did talk about how people were trying to save the lives of other people, which was important.
Yes.
But I also read another book he wrote about sort of post-traumatic stress. He was making too many excuses, and but it was well written. I have to give him credit for being well written. And I remember being. I went to Cuba at one time, and there was when I was in Cuba, the people were talking about these ex-Cubans who were dishing the revolution, who was an author, and the Cuban committee there, the artists there, said, "I don't care if he's an a-hole, he's a good writer." He said, "There's talent there, and but know your message, know what they're writing about." But he says, we have to credit people for their talent, and so there are great people writing great stuff sometimes, but we have to learn how to look at things critically. And for veterans, we have our own stories and we have our own experiences, and they're different. I had friends that were right in the middle of battle after battle after battle, and it wasn't like me. It seemed like I was standing around a lot until we had to go in the field and hump the mountains and then run into sniper fire or booby traps and stuff like that. And you know, and just the very fear when in the middle of the night standing in a perimeter and a bullet going right past, one went right past me and my neck and shot the guy down beside me, you know. I still live with that as guilt, and people don't understand how in the middle of the night how frightening that can be. Well, I had, as a machine gunner, I had to be out on post, so they'd send me way out sometimes with a crew, and we'd just be on a listening post.
I have a sense that PTSD, I spent 5 months in a PTSD hospital in Menlo Park.
Yeah.
And it allowed me to be here now.
Yeah.
I may not, you know, those are bad times. But seeing these guys, one of the things that I am curious about is in the hospital seeing people that were out in battle a lot had less fear than people that pulled duty at bunkers.
Oh yeah.
And they seemed like their PTSD was much greater
That's interesting.
than someone that pulled a trigger and fought.
I haven't found that. I found different people respond differently, but
I'd agree with that.
You know, I think different people respond differently. I do find that, I mean, I didn't find fear when a bullet was fired at me.
Right.
Strange. There's adrenaline or something.
Yes.
In fact, I felt more alive than I ever felt.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't know if people understand that. To me, the post-traumatic stress was the betrayal. The betrayal, post-traumatic stress, was that the idea I went to war to save our nation from this great terror, you know, and that we were liberating the Vietnamese people. In fact, when we were killing the Vietnamese people, and they had a right for their own to run their own country, and that betrayal is what was just the beginning of betrayals. There was boot camp betrayal. There was all kinds of stuff that happened. But one of the things I know, like I said, is, again, we all talk. I find that some people that are dealing with post-traumatic stress or just dealing with trying to talk about or express themselves about anything use art and writing, poetry. And I know when I first came back as a printmaker, I did clay also for a little bit, you know. What I liked was the process. It took my mind off everything else.
Right.
If you're doing clay, you know, and you're putting your muscle and your body into moving that around and then shaping it, and you have to learn the kiln and the glazes and all the stuff. There's you're educating your mind about chemistry and all kinds of different things that are going on, but it's physical, and I don't know. There was something about being part of the earth, the clay.
It is. It's very, very tactile.
Yeah.
And that process orientation.
Right. And I had that also with printmaking.
Huh.
So when I was printmaking, you know, I mean, we're doing etching. So I would do an etching with copper plates and acid and all these various things. But you know, when I'm carving into a plate or something, or playing with a plate or a wood block or any of those kinds of things, I would be pushing against something and it'd be given back. So it wasn't like I was drawing. You know, it forced me to go in different directions sometimes, and I had a lot of happy accidents that I would go into, and I say, this moved me in a whole different direction.
It's interesting that my first, I didn't do any art before the military. I was planning on being a football and track coach, having a wife, 2.5 kids, and you know, the station wagon, all that. But after Vietnam, a couple of years of bouncing around a little bit, and during that, I started doing macrame. And I was making these big macrame things and tying knots and pulling and so forth.
You're a hippie.
Yeah. And then I wanted to go back to school, and I love the ocean.
Yeah. Oh,
and so I'll go study oceanography.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I had to take an art class. So I took ceramics, a pottery class, and whoa, it absorbed me. I was in the studio working, and all of a sudden it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, how'd that happen? And then I dropped science and oceanography and pursued pottery until I got to a point where I was told to don't make pots, have a plaster mold, and make some draped things and put these together. I was in Northern California. It was the funk art movement, all that was going on. And I said, I'm out of here. And so I dropped out and moved to the country. And there I got a book and a pile of bricks and built a kiln. I had a friend helping me. And we dug clay and we made kick wheels from axles of a car that had been abandoned in a canyon. And so it was this kind of, oh, yeah, we were hippies. Back just doing it. It was all long, slow learning curve. Almost flat learning curve. But it was so rich. Of a way to learn.
Beautiful life.
And so I did that for about, I don't know, 12 years, where digging clay, wood firing, so forth. And then I went, I moved back to town. I was in the country, 40 acres, 2 streams, no electricity, great life. And I had a dream one time that I was on a hillside in this ditch, looking down, and the valley, all these nuclear clouds explode. There were all these explosions. They couldn't have been nuclear. But my sense was, I want to be down there. So I moved from there, from the mountains of Northern California, to Chico. And then from Chico, I went to Los Angeles, where I went to graduate school. And before graduate school, I was off to the PTSD program. And then I came back and completed that. And my mentor then was a fellow named Paul Soldner. And he had been in Patton's Army in World War II. But he was a conscientious objector. And so he was a medic. He also helped liberate Mauthausen death camp, and was there on the first people to go in, and took a lot of pictures. And he said that I saw these drawings and marks on the walls in the barracks where the prisoners were, and said, I wanted to be an artist. So he went on to do that. And so that after graduate school, I taught around, and I'm going to come back to this book here soon. I taught around, ended up at Oregon College of Art and Craft for 18 years, leading the ceramics department. And Jacob Haslacker, who is the director of the LH project.
And LH stands for what? Is it?
LH. I'd say Lederhosen, but that's not it.
It's not it.
LH was, his family's from Austria. And the brand that they had for the cattle was LH. And I know that he told me once, but I don't know. It's not there, too many gray hairs. I don't remember. But it's, so this was his vision, the LH project. It's an international residency for ceramic artists.
Oh, that's great.
It's wonderful. And I have been invited to be on the board of it. And so when this started, this is, I don't know, they see these?
No, put it out this way, in this direction here. This note, right? Yeah.
Right there. Okay. So there's firing one of the kilns at night during our time there.
Now that's your work there.
This is a piece that I did, and it's interesting. When I did my graduate show in Claremont, I built this room that had a block wall. It had markers. I'm going to set this down for just a second. It had these markers across the center of it, and it had a bamboo wall that you had to come in and go with an opening that you had to honor the space as you came into. So, and in there was a pile of 550 bowls. And so that was the first time I'd done the bowls. And those were all white bowls, and they were skulls. They were nourishment. I think a bowl is a really wonderful vessel. I mean, we use it for nourishment. We can use it for containing tell
For us,
stories.
it's to me like a helmet. You know,
Yes,
we had the helmet. We cook in it. We do.
Yeah,
we take a bath in it. You know,
you got it, got it. And so this is again, these are red bowls, red clay instead of white clay, and they have a heavy white slip on them, and they're on sandbags. And I call this piece Duck Faux, and that's where our battalion headquarters was. And for me, this is all of us. It's not about death. There's some dead guys there. There's some living guys there. There's some Vietnamese there. There's all these people that were around that process. That's how I see
vessel.
this.
Human being is a vessel,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And there's the, I don't know if that,
Yeah, that'll show.
you can see that. Yeah, there you go. Is that the right side? Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. And then last summer, the reason I didn't go to the Veterans Residency is my family. This is my daughter Lucy and I. And we are sitting in a German bunker at Omaha Beach in Normandy. And so we did a family trip to France, Amsterdam and France, and we went to Omaha Beach, and I explained the significance to the kid.
That is amazing. It's funny that you say that, because I want to break a little bit. I'm reading this book by Charles Glass called The Deserters. No pictures on here, folks, but one of the things about it was that I'm reading. I just finished the book, so towards the end it said there were a lot of guys in France. They weren't tourists. Americans weren't tourists. They were all ex-veterans that came back to see, you know, what had happened in World War II. These were World War II veterans back in France, visiting small rural areas that they had been in.
And this was when? Recently?
Well, yeah, some of them were in the 1980s and 70s, you know. Many of them now have passed away. But it just kind of blew me away, you know, that they did that. There was another, this was about a number of guys that had deserted during World War II, and nobody had really done a study on that. And so Glass had kind of put this together and ran across a few people, some who became artists, poets. I like this one phrase. I'll find these phrases and give me something. He said this guy discovered Hopkins. He had been reading Faulkner and Dostoevsky and others, and he said he was slap happy with syllables thereafter, and he became a poet. You know, but he also was AWOL with a number of people that in France that he stayed with, or he went to Britain and he started staying with people. Like the artist Herbert Reed. Remember Reed? I mean, I studied a lot of art history through Herbert Reed, you know. And there were some others that were also involved there, but they inspired him. And when you said that, going back, it just reminded me. I just read that, these guys going back and trying to rediscover what it was like. I went back to Vietnam in 2006 for an Agent Orange conference, and I couldn't get back to the same area that I was in, but the closest I came to it was in, because we ran this conference and at other people's mercy there, but the closest I came to it was Hue. And it was the first time I recognized the country as I remembered it when I was there, you know, because all the others I was in Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, formerly Saigon, which was all big city, you know, and these things are just growing rapidly, and I was in the jungle. You know? I didn't recognize any of this stuff. This was totally different for me. But it just was. But the people were just incredibly wonderful there. And I just wanted to say that reminded me about a project I just learned about too. I was at the Vet Center, and we're talking about post-traumatic stress. I have post-traumatic stress. I go to therapy once a month, and just recently it's been triggered. I think it triggered a lot of us veterans who knew a guy named David Jacob George, who was an Afghan veteran who did 3 tours, and he would actually go on. I met him once. He came to when I was on the board of VFP on the national. He came to the board, and he and another vet were going across the country on bicycles and going to homeless places, and he played the banjo and he met with people, but he just recently committed suicide. And he dealt with trying to talk to people about suicide, and I don't know, there was a point there where just to me, if he couldn't make it, I began to doubt my own ability to make it sometimes, you know. But it upset me. It upset a lot of us veterans, and it just starts triggering things. And these wars, you continue going back, people going back to Iraq over this ISIS stuff, I think probably triggered Jacob. It triggers a lot of Afghan and Iraq veterans. It triggered me. His loss triggered me even more. So there's, you know, for me, Agent Orange is one of the reasons that I deal with a lot of things. I lost a child due to exposure to Agent Orange. So there's going to be an Agent Orange program coming up. It says it's not just a curse anymore. The offspring of veterans exposed to Agent Orange face the same health risks as their fathers. And this is the first time I've heard that, because they will recognize things with female veterans when they won't recognize it with male veterans. I've been working on legislation with the national campaign to address that issue, and there is a bill out there introduced by Barbara Lee, but called I think HR 2519. But this is going to be up at the VA hospital on the second floor, November 22nd, from 1:30 p.m. Portland Medical VA second floor. Updates on Agent Orange issues, the impact on our children, a panel of veterans leaders, service officers available for initial claims and questions, resources available. So I'm glad somebody's doing this. And I just picked this up at the Vet Center and a flyer, and there's a phone number here, and I didn't get it up here because I didn't even know if I was going to do this. But the phone number for you out there is 503-577-6639. So that's 503-577-6639. This is to learn more about the updates on Agent Orange and how they affect our children. I just wanted to put that out there while we're talking about this. I know that in that show, I mean, there were some people that were in the veteran show, and then there were some people that were in the larger show.
Right, correct.
Show. And was Jesse, is that him that did the barrels? Stephen, yeah. There was he had these. I want, if you should just start putting up some of the artwork up there, so we can take a look at it, and I want you to kind of give us a little bit about whose work it is, and tell us a little bit about that work. So you have the first artwork up there. There it is. Oh, that's yours.
That's mine.
That was at what was the gallery?
That's at Eutectic Gallery.
Eutectic Gallery.
Yep. It's on Northeast Portland on 20th.
Yeah. And that's when I first even sort of learned a little bit about you, actually. You know, I was in there for a show that was in between. They had the bowls there, I think, at that time. And there was some other veteran work there. And I first heard your name at that time and was told to try and get a hold of you. You keep going for another piece. And that was, I mean, I asked you about that painting before. There's another one that's up there. Let's see here if he's got it. Okay.
This is Jesse.
This is Jesse's work. And Jesse, again, what's Jesse's last name?
Jesse Albrecht.
Jesse Albrecht. And yeah, this is.
And he went to both veteran residencies.
But with your piece, that last piece was you had these, yeah, there's three.
Yes.
And then there's another one that has 3 dots.
Yes.
And I asked you about it. You started telling me that those dots represented 3 people that died in Vietnam.
Yes, yeah. 3 of my platoon.
There you go.
Yes, a lot of my work, probably in the last 20 years or more, has had a marker image, a tombstone house image, and 3 usually red dots. And the red dots were 3 sons, and it was John Mills, my platoon sergeant, who was killed just a few days after I was wounded the second time. Dwayne Papke, who was killed and Jesse Palmer, who was killed the first time I was wounded. And those, I keep those three guys with me all the time. So
I thought when I saw that, when you told me that, I thought, what a great tribute.
They remain alive,
yes,
as long as I think about them.
Yeah.
So, and I also noticed that more recently, those three sons are three sons that made it back. And it's three of us. It's myself, it's John Wood, and Joe Michaels. And we were all friends before, and we've remained friends but drifted to different places.
And 3 is a powerful number. I mean, it also has that birth, life, death. It has the initiation in life. You know, there's a lot of spiritual connections to the number 3, and I've ran across that in sort of metaphysical studies when I was looking for why am I here? Why am I still here? You know, and so I see the significance, and it's deeper than most people think. You know, yeah.
Fits on the page well, also.
It does, yeah. And it's so subtle. I mean, you know, I mean, if you didn't tell somebody, they have no idea. Yeah. But what a great tribute! I thought.
I had an opportunity to go to Lithuania while it was still Soviet Union, and it was just before the fall of the Soviet Union. And I spent a month and a half working at a glass factory, in a ceramic section of a glass factory. And during this time, I kept saying, "Oh, I want to meet some Afghan vets. I want, you know, and oh, I know some, but oh, you wouldn't want to talk. Oh, yeah." So finally, I'm being interviewed by a newspaper person just before we're finished for our exhibit, and she says, "Oh, Afghan vets? Oh, sure." And so she hooked me up with these guys, and I went there. You know, it's like a generation later, but same stuff. And I went down to their clubhouse, they called it, and they were watching Platoon. And the first question, you know, they didn't speak English. One of them did, kind of, and was Vietnam-like Platoon. I said, you know, was Iraq like a movie, or Afghanistan? No, it wasn't. And I was building a marker for my platoon sergeant of one of the 3 I built, and they came to the opening. And in Lithuania, people bring flowers and give a lot of flowers at openings, and they put these flowers, carnations, on the floor in front of this piece, and so it remains with them now. I left that thing there for them to keep in their clubhouse.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was really. We had a great night talking with our vodka and pickled herring.
Well, you know, I mean, again, they were wondering whether you could talk with these guys, but veterans talk to veterans.
Yes,
you know, and where they might not say anything to anybody else, it seems like we can open up to each other.
That's so true.
And that's what's kind of nice here. I mean, we're veterans talking, but we're putting it out there that people can see this, and you know, it's safe to talk, people. It's safe to let yourself tell the truth as you see it. Don't care what anybody else judges that or how they judge that. It's, for me, it's healing. And it's also, you know, everybody experiences it differently, and there's different perspectives. I mean, as an artist, I mean, I did 2-dimensional drawing and painting and printmaking for a long time. Then I was doing sculpture. And when I started thinking sculpture, I started to think, man, I got to think about the space, the base, the things above, how this is going to fit in a place, you know? I started having to think 3-dimensional, and then I realized that's life. I mean, there's all different kinds of perspectives, the way people can examine your life, your war, your relationships with other people. And if we have a mind that's critical enough to allow that to be seen without just putting blinders on and looking in one direction, we can see a whole lot of things going on, and appreciate a whole lot of things that are going on.
Certainly.
And that's kind of art opened that up for me. I mean, even art history. When I started, you know, history used to be boring to me when I was in high school. I just dates and places and times. Even art history, when I first started in undergraduate school, you know, it was like, remember the date? Where is this piece at? What date was that? What piece? Who? What was the art? But when I started reading the artists, and started reading their histories, and you know, Of course, the studies that I'd be doing, most of these artists would have been in World War I or World War II, right?
World War I, there was this really interesting group that came out of there that all had combat experience on both sides.
That's right.
There were these Germans that were painters, and they went back and worked on work, and some...
well, Otto Dix had a major piece, you know. Yeah. It was just great, incredible.
So...
And then the Surrealists, and...
that's where the camoufleurs developed.
Is that right?
In World War I, all the French painters became the people that did camouflage. And they would build whole armies in tanks and so forth out of cardboard or whatever material they were using, and just to trick the enemy. So this idea of the artist had a job as a camoufleur, except for Brock. He was an infantry lieutenant.
Oh, well, I mean, that's where I start. When that started happening, all of a sudden I started reading art history from a whole different perspective and started learning history. Yes. And then that would take me, actually I would start reading the stuff they were reading. So, because they would refer to something, and then that would get me to read something like Zola, you know. And then I started having an education through this whole different world, you know, and it has not stopped. As people know, I usually bring a book on here, maybe 2 or 3, and I'm reading 2 other books right now, and I just can't stop. I mean, it's just continuous education. But it also informs me, like that little phrase, slap happy with syllables, you know, could end up being an art piece, you know. Could be. It's just little things like that that will inspire me on something. And or it may be a poem, you know, who knows? But it does something to you, and it's a conversation with history. I feel when I'm reading a book, it's not like it was 19th century. It feels like today. It feels like I'm talking to that writer, and there's a conversation because we keep telling the same story over and over again, and I keep wondering. I keep saying, how come we keep repeating these things over and over again? It's different time, different kind of economy, a different kind of democracy, but we start ending up talking about these things, you know. And it's you know, people do that. I wanted to show some of the other artwork up here too, as we're going to run out of time faster than I thought. But can you put up some more of the artwork? We'll just do one after another, but leave them up there for a few seconds. Okay, yeah, now that's Giuseppe's, and he's studying here right now.
Giuseppe is at the Oregon College of Art and Craft in the MFA program.
Yeah, and he's an Iraq vet.
He is an Iraq vet.
And he and I are...
No, Kosovo.
Was he Kosovo?
Kosovo.
Oh, okay, he's Kosovo. He and I are going to be working on some art projects together, actually. I was hoping he would be here for this interview. I was invited him, but he had family things to do. But I'll get him on here sometime. We'll talk about his work. Okay,
that's Jesse on the right, Jesse Albrecht.
And his pieces in the back. Now, what's the piece on the wall?
The wall piece is Daniel Donovan's.
Yes, I like that piece. That was amazing.
The ones right behind Jesse's hand are his.
Yeah. And that piece on the wall, you put these earphones on your head, and there's this conversation and loud noise going on behind this gun there, and it was just an amazing little installation piece.
It was. It was.
It's Jesse's too, I believe.
Like Jesse's and
Bush and Cheney.
That's Jesse's.
And then Aaron's was in the background there.
Yes.
Here's Giuseppe again. And these are 2 of his pieces. And that is Jesse's again.
That's back to Jesse.
Jesse.
Yeah.
Now there's Aaron's. He's the one that did my cups here.
This is Aaron Toole.
It's Aaron Toole.
Who's from Berkeley.
And he is doing one show right after the next, it seems like.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's quite a group of artists. That was an extraordinary show.
It was. LH, they're doing an extraordinary thing, inviting these people out, putting them up, feeding them for this month and saying, work, talk, see what happens. Yeah, okay. And some great things happen out of it.
It was amazing. I had a great time at the show. I've made some new friends, and of course, also we had Drew Cameron came to visit. Mm-hmm. He was here just recently at the Contemporary Arts and Crafts doing his combat papers.
He'll be back.
He's going to be back.
Yes.
Yeah. Is he gonna,
is it April?
Yeah. Giuseppe was talking about we'd like to set up a combat paper. I mean, try to find a way to get a studio, set it up so that we'd have that available here.
We are he's going to do something at one of the colleges in town.
Yeah.
But we have also had discussions. My wife Joanna and I have a studio just off the Burnside Bridge in the southeast on Ash Street. And we talked about having something there.
Well, that would be nice.
Yes.
That would be nice.
Yes. I was talking to Drew. I would love to possibly make some flat clay pieces that have depth to them. Maybe our
paper over the top,
and then cast paper into that.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, when he was here, I just took. I had a T-shirt, which was a Agent Orange T-shirt that I had to make, so I have this piece. But I gave him I had a dog tag that was Veterans for Peace dog tag, and so I asked him to make an impression with it. So we did an impression in the Agent Orange piece. I yet to do an image on it. I plan to do an image on that piece, but it's each of these pieces, and I brought it here. I showed it, I think, on a show that I did a couple back here. That you know, usually people bring in their old uniforms or their family's uniforms, and you know, cut them up, and we makes a paper pulp out of it, and he calls it a portrait, which is the paper itself. Now you can put images on it afterwards, or you can put them on before. There's a number of different ways, but I like the whole idea of that impression was what embossing the paper.
Which is like you talked about. It's also giving it dimension.
Right.
You talked about 2-dimension, 3-dimension
right.
space. How do we look and see these things?
And texture and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly.
I think that'd be very exciting.
But the history behind some of these pieces too. We had a young family who came, who their father had died and was a veteran. They found these old uniforms and they brought those in, and it's, you know, what do you do with these uniforms? And now it's been turned into paper, something they can treasure, they could write on, they could do whatever they want with it. But it is now, you know, this whole history is all just culminated in a piece of art, which is it's pretty amazing stuff.
Mine all went to the Goodwill years ago, except for my dress blues jacket that I still keep. Yeah,
well, I couldn't get into any of my stuff if I had it, but when I came back, it was a very, very strange experience. I was in the Philippines, right? And when I came back, and I had gotten out of the brig just a while before then. And there were a few guys, and you know, they had given me some marijuana, and I wasn't really a user of it that much, but you know, I thought I'd just take it with me, and we're getting through the gate, and all of a sudden this guy's checking, the guards are checking, and people going out. I said, oh shit, I can't get caught with this stuff, you know. I ate it. And as I was leaving, all I can remember is going through the jungle. This music was playing because the guard just waved us through, and then I got on the plane. We're coming into San Francisco, and this guy was with his wife. Actually, got married, and him and his wife carried me onto the plane, I guess, because I don't remember anything. And I come into San Francisco, and the music on the airplane was San Francisco Lights, and I'm looking down, and this is how I came back to the U.S. And of course, then you go to the Air Force Base, and we clean up, and I have to go to the airport to go back home. I took my duffel bag and stuffed it in the garbage, and I had had enough of it. You know, for me, the war was over. I wanted it to be over. I didn't want to talk about it anymore.
Exactly. It was different coming back at that time than today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still the same, but people didn't want to talk to you then.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to talk about that at all. You know, I had had enough. I had not enough of the. I mean, I didn't go for help. I didn't go for help till 2008.
Oh.
You know, is when I started, because I would not go to the VA. I would not go deal with these people at all. I just had an aversion to the bureaucracy, the paperwork, the military, in all kinds of ways. But
So,
you know, but I went to a retreat with veterans,
yeah.
and through that I learned. It was called the Welcome Project, and through that I learned. Ian, who actually came to one of our pieces, that's the show. Actually had gone through a similar one after me. We became friends. He's an Iraq vet, folks, who I'm talking about. But that experience actually helped me realize, you know, that I needed to get some help, and to that things had changed quite a bit from when I came back. There were a lot of people that were very helpful. Yep. Got me through it, and so I would recommend, I mean, some people in different states are different, because you still hear the problems that exist, but I would recommend that people do that.
Oh yes, I'm being wounded. I was in and out of VA hospitals, and I believe in the VA. They have helped me so much.
Yeah,
I trust them.
Yeah. I think we have one of the best up here, you know, which is fantastic. So for me, you know, that's where all my medical is now. That's where I go. So it's a fortunate thing. And if any of you out there, veterans, sometimes you have to go through the administrative part just to get in. But once you get in, there are a lot of people in the VA who really care about you,
yes.
and care to take care of you, and will do their best to help you through the process. If you can't, you know, you can contact Veterans for Peace, you can contact VFW, you can contact a number of people to help you fill out that paperwork. And so please, you know, check it out. There's also a project with Veterans for Peace called the Full Disclosure, honest commemoration of the Vietnam War. We have a website and a Facebook. If you go, you know, you can contact me through Veterans for Peace Chapter 72, and I'd be glad to let you know more about it. But you can Google those things and bring them up. There's a whole history in which we're trying to tell the truth about the Vietnam War, both sides of the war, the Vietnamese, us, the anti-war movement, the GI resistance movement, and you know, it's like we said, there are different perspectives. People see it from all kinds of angles, and we want you to have an opportunity to look at it from alternative views. I want to thank you all. Please come back again, and we'll see you next month.